Welcome everyone. Kia ora, ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening if you are watching this on replay. You'll be watching it in the future. But if you are live here right now, welcome. Feel free to say hi or kia ora in the chat and let us know where you are zooming in from so we can get a bit of a feel for who's in the room. We had about over 100 people register for this session, which is fabulous. I'm going to keep an eye out to see if there's other people from not the mainland. Wellington. Kia ora, Wellington. There'll be lots from Christchurch, I imagine, and the Canterbury region. Auckland, Otatahi, kia ora, Hamilton, Rangiora, love it. Anyone global? Have we gone global, Neil? We might have gone global with this session, perhaps. Welcome, everyone. So my name is Pip Loader, and I am the question asker today. So this session was born out of the twice postponed, once cancelled Canterbury Tech Summit, of which I was to be the MC for. And I had so many great jokes about tech because my husband's a nerd, self-confessed. And so I had some fabulous stories, but you have to wait for those for the next one. And to be honest, I was looking forward to getting down to the mainland for a week after what was a very full-on school holiday break. All the parents out there that have children at school, we know how long that break is. It's very long. And my husband had said, I thought the conference was only a day. And I said, yeah, but I've got some meetings and some other things. Very busy down in Canterbury. So we were really looking forward to it until 2.5 days out when the Prime Minister essentially turned the whole country into red light districts without the nightclubs and fun, I might add. So Neil and I had a bit of a discussion about the panel conversation and the fact that it would be a real shame to not talk about it, given how upfront the New Zealand tech sector has been in acknowledging that it can do a little bit better when it comes to diversity and inclusion. So here we are. This is the first of what will be many lunchtime sessions, lunchtime tech sessions, and Neil is going to come on at the end and talk a little bit more about that and what's coming up next. But I am very excited about the discussion today. So I run my own business and work in the leadership and team space, fundamentally around helping leaders create the conditions and the optimal environments so their people can perform at their best. And inclusion is a massive part of this. So this whole conversation and discussion is right up my discussion alley. If diversity is about having different identities and perspectives and communities represented inside your organisation, then for me, the inclusion part is what it feels like. The inclusion part is how we take all of those diverse perspectives and we create the conditions for them to be seen and heard and come to life in our workplace. And it's also one of the points of failure that I see in the work that I do. I believe we need to work on both diversity and inclusion, and we can have the best hiring policies around diversity in the world, but if we don't have the inclusive culture in our workplace and our leaders don't create the space and time to proactively, consciously and continuously build inclusive teams, then we're wasting our time. So you may at one end have ticked the diversity box, but people are left feeling like they don't belong and they don't fit in, and that they were the token hire, which is actual words that I have heard people in workplaces say. So we should all be striving to create more diverse and inclusive teams and workplaces. And when we do this and we create great teams that really embrace diversity and that really nail the inclusion part, we help people stand out versus blend in. When it's working well, teams look less like a smoothie and more like a great salad. So, in a great salad, you can see all of the ingredients and all of the individual parts that make up those beautiful flavors. That's what I reckon teams need to look like when diversity and inclusion are working really well. So that's enough from me. We are joined by three fabulous humans on our panel today to share with us how we can aim for more team salads and less smoothies in our workplace. So we have got Dorenda Britten, Elle Archer and Kate Selway joining us, and we're going to kick things off shortly with each of them introducing themselves and then giving us a bit of an overview of the area and the angle that they're kind of coming from and the point of view that they're coming from when it comes to this discussion around diversity and inclusion today. So while they think about that, and I give them time because I might have just put them on the spot that they were going to do that, one of the things that I also do in some of the workshops that I run is called Welcoming the Elephants, where instead of ignoring and pretending that there aren't any elephants in the room with our little blinkers on, we acknowledge them and we make them feel welcome. So there is at first glance and has been some comment around the seemingly lack of diversity on this panel today. And I am simply going to say that diversity includes visible and non-visible differences, which we often overlook in the space. And our brain is often quick to make judgments and assumptions about people from what they see and what other people look like, which I can guarantee some of you already did this morning or previously when you looked at this panel. So I know that Neil and the team at Canterbury Tech work really hard to achieve good ethnic and gender diversity for their tech summits. And this panel was constructed very deliberately to get people thinking a little more broadly than normal about diversity, to include Māori, LGBTQIA, and also the neurodiversity viewpoints. So that's why we've got this fabulous group of Dorenda, Kate and Elle here with us today. If you've got any questions, we're going to have a bit of a Q&A piece at the end. We've got some set kind of questions that we're going to give to the panel first, but if you've got anything that comes up from what you hear or you want to know a bit more about, chuck it in the chat. Bit of a Q, if you can put a big capital Q at the start, that makes it easier for us to spot the questions coming through. And yeah, so I'd invite you to do that. And in the meantime, let's kick things off. We'll go alphabetical order, because that's easy for me to remember, with Dorenda and then Elle and then Kate, who you are, where you come from, and your kind of focus area when it comes to diversity and inclusion in the work that you do. Dorenda, that's you. We'll get there. We did test this. How about we go to Elle while Dorenda... Oh, there we go. There we go.
Here we are. I'm working on a strange computer. So, okay. So my name's Dorenda. I've recently been alerted to the fact that I might have been dyslexic, which means that you've picked good diversity. Either you picked that in me or not. I don't know. But I could also be diverse because I'm a good deal older than anyone else probably on this whole discussion today. And so that makes me double diverse. I'm particularly interested in drawing more capability from our communities. So I've come from a family who are crazily dyslexic, who are all inventive and entrepreneurial. And so we just thought that was the way the world was. It took me a very long time in my life to realize that that's not how the world was, and that's not how you are judged or given access to creating ideas. And so having access is very difficult. Always the one that comes up with the ideas, but never the one that gets to actually participate in the development of the idea. So for me, the tech sector over recent months has been talking more and more about the lack of skills in the tech sector. I'm sort of wedded to the tech sector. I've been associated with it for about 25 years now as a judge. And when I saw the information coming out from the tech sector in terms of looking for new skills, we're looking at on the back of closed borders, etc., and international competition, I saw that we were describing diversity as gender and culture. Now I just went, whoa, hey, maybe we're not applying enough imagination to this, because we have neurodiversity as well, which is a very strong diversity amongst human populations. And it actually runs right across culture and gender. It's not above, but it's alongside. And so for me, my activities as a very small business had to be kind of roped in. I can't deal with all of the neurodiversities, although I recognize they're all there and we should be incorporating all of the neurodiversities in our search for skills. But I've chosen dyslexia because I know more about dyslexia than the other diversities. And honestly, many dyslexic people have multiple diverse thinking. So that's me. I'm involved in a number of projects around that.
Thanks, Dorenda. Awesome. All right, Elle.
Nā mihi nui ki a koutou. No urio o Ngāti Tamatera hauraki me Pairoa hoki, and ko Ngāti Parau, nai tūhoi Ngāpuhi o ku iwi, ko o tautahi tōku kāinga noho, ko Elle Archer tēnei kia ora. I'm humbled to be part of this kōrero first and foremost. My why is to unify. So it's ko tahitanga, which is foundational for me, and this drives all of my movements and my kōrero. Professional background wise, 27 years in the workforce, started off in hospo, learned a bit about people in that space and true service. A chunk of my 27 years have been in senior leadership positions across geospatial technology, digital transformation, infrastructure, education, and various other sectors. I'm a strategist, a futurist, budding futurist. Kia ora Cheryl, whaia Cheryl, doig. Budding futurist, I'm a weaver and a tactician. I started my governance journey in 2009. I currently sit on several boards, trust associations in economic development, education, water technology, smart development, and Māori futures. I am also part of a collective of consultants who work on and weave several projects together for iwi, government, community, business, and industry. My PhD focus, when I get around to doing it, is legacy impact-led governance. So I suppose firstly, I'm not here to speak for Māori. I'm here rather to give my own recommendation for my experiences working with communities, iwi, business and government, and industry at engagement, management and governance levels. So, however, you know, Māori, we have a significant amount of knowledge and understanding, mātauranga Māori, regarding our collective stewardship of resources and the environment that can be incorporated in our strategic and operational work. So from a technological impact and better outcomes perspective, environmental protection and innovation is in our DNA. not just the 600, 700 years we've been here in Aotearoa, but way before that, it's in our whakapapa. So, however, Māori only represent, 5.6% of the technology workforce in Aotearoa. Why is that? So we're also less likely to have access to the internet, and our digital equity, we're on the lower end of our digital equity scale. So this is a passion point for me to aid in lifting and elevating and enhancing and empowering this space for us. So, so the goal from a technological perspective in our technology spaces should be to provide a safe environment, which is culturally aware. The sharing of mātauranga Māori information, expertise and learning is welcomed and practiced. And finally, the other thing is I am a proud Māori, but I'm also English and I'm Scottish. I'm a technologist and a strategist and a director and a raving geek. Hashtag Proud Geek New Zealand. I'm a cinephile. I'm a best friend, I'm a fur baby mama, and I'm a loving wife. And I come from a non-lineal pre-academic background. So do not be afraid to show your holistic, multi-awesome self. Capture that, frickin' print it, do it. I still think we're boxing each other in, man. And humans, we have an amazing capability and are able to be multifaceted and multi-dimensional. So we really, I believe, really need to evolve past these historical thought process of what makes up a person. Who am I? Ko wai-o is more than just one dimension. So kia ora, look forward to the kōrero.
Kia ora, thanks, Elle. Jeepers, is anyone else exhausted because all the stuff that Elle does? I'm like, God, I'll be lucky if I could just be a futurist, let alone a weaver, a tactician, and every other thing that she spouted out there. But also, I love your little I am a. And I reckon that little rap sheet was pretty awesome and would challenge everyone to write I am a at the top of a page and then put 20 things like Elle just did to talk about who you are, because we're more than just what people see sometimes. Thanks, Elle. That was great. All right, Kate.
Well, I can't beat that, but hi, everybody. I'm Kate. I was just thinking, what am I, as Elle was talking? And I'm going to start, I guess, with my introduction. I'm going to try that. So I am a leader at Jade Software. I'm also a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a Levinite originally, born and bred in Levin, and I am now based in Canterbury. So hi, everybody. I guess I'm speaking today on from a leadership perspective, but from an internal cultural perspective. So my passion is about creating environments where people can truly be themselves and be all of their I ams in the workplace and not having to hide pieces of themselves. And so how do we create those environments? What role do we play? How do we individually contribute to that? Because it's not just a leadership goal or aspiration, it should be everyone's aspiration in the workplace. I'm a true believer that we don't just have an 8:30 till 5 p.m. or a 9 till 5 or a 9 till 7, whatever hours you work self, and then an outside work self. It is just all one. So how do we make sure that we really honour that and create spaces for people to bring their full self to work? So that's my angle today.
I love that. Thank you, Kate. That beautiful piece around creating environments where people can just be themselves. And I think that is a great thing to aspire to for a workplace. And I just kind of can imagine what that must feel like for people when their organisation achieves that and how cool that must be. Like I often talk about, I help people love what they do and that they turn up to work and they love it and they love Mondays and they hate Fridays because they have to go home and stop being at work. Like I want to kind of flip that switch, but that will take a little bit of time. People are like, what? I'm like, yeah, I want people to go, oh my God, it's Monday tomorrow. I get to go to work and I love it. But it's probably a bit aspirational as well. But I reckon if we create more environments where people can just be themselves and bring their whole self and true self to work, then we'd start to get a little bit closer to that. All right, cool, good intros. I'm excited about where this is going to go. I noticed there's a couple of questions, which is good. We're going to start with the kind of the obvious two, just to kind of get into a bit of a swing of it. So from the different perspectives, and maybe Kate, we'll start with you as soon as we're kind of finished with you, and just to give you a turn to go first. What do you see as the common barriers to creating those inclusive workplaces? And you can talk like in the tech sector if you wanted to be specific, but those common barriers based on the work that you've done at Jade, and I know that's been quite the journey for yourself and the leadership team and the whole organisation. But yeah, what are those kind of common barriers that some other people might also resonate with that kind of stop that inclusivity and diversity?
Yeah, okay. So my point of view is going to come from what we've been doing at Jade, and Pip, like you said, we're not done at all. This is definitely, it'll ever evolve. It's a piece of work that doesn't stop, I don't think, around creating the culture that we're trying to aspire to. But when we started this piece of work 3 odd years ago, the first barrier for us was really around, this is going to sound a bit cliche, but our company values. Because our company values had got to the stage where they had just become artifacts on the wall. There wasn't true core behaviour, what it looks like, what it doesn't look like, how we can expect to show up, how we won't show up, how we hold each other accountable to that. So we really started at ground zero, going back to our values, redefining what they looked like for us, making it really explicit for our people and for our leaders around what does people first, which is one of our values, look like at Jade. How will you know when that's happening? What will it feel like when it's not? How will we reward for when we see behaviours against those values? And how are we going to hold people account? And not in a performance management nasty kind of way. How are we going to have real human conversations when we feel like something's gone off track against our values? So our first barrier was our values. They just weren't really fit for purpose anymore. They'd done their job, which was great. They weren't going to help us move forward to create that environment that we were really aspiring to create. And I'd say our second one is alignment and leadership. If you've not got alignment at leadership around what is the environment you're trying to create, how is that going to feel for your people on a day-to-day basis? And yes, when we have to have some early conversations, we agree to step into that rather than step away from that. It kind of falls away, I think. It's not just a HR or a P&C kind of initiative at all. It's a company-wide driven commitment to build a better future. So values and leadership are core, and communication within the organisation. So making sure that everyone understands the why. What does this look like? How does it affect me? What does it mean for me on a day-to-day basis? They would be the first couple of barriers. There's lots that I could cover, but that'd be my first that I'd call out.
Yes, so in that alignment and leadership space, because I see that a lot as well, how did you get through having those uncomfortable conversations? Because I think that's that starting point. A lot of the times the starting point can be getting comfortable having those uncomfortable conversations and not, and knowing that you're not going to say it right, or, there's that fear of not knowing what to say or saying the wrong thing and offending people. Like, was that a barrier as well in terms of that uncomfortable awkwardness?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I've got a really live example of what happened in Jade, which I'm really happy to share because I think there's so much good learning from. Our focus in diversity and inclusion has been around the rainbow community and pride, and we had a really interesting example of how there became a bit of a values clash in the organisation when we had some beautiful imagery put up around the building to celebrate Jade Pride Week. And this sounds so silly, but the images kept disappearing off the walls when we were actually in the building together, not remote. And it happened a couple of times, and the Pride crew would go back and they'd put their posters back up. And after about the third time, they reached out and they said, Kate, this seems to be more targeted than just, someone taking down some messy posters, because they'd got a bit afraid. And I think that seems small. It seems like they were just some posters on the wall. leave it, keep putting them up, keep printing them, a couple of dollars to print each poster. But I think it was a key point for us in our culture and with our values for us to stop as senior leaders and go, this could be small, this could be someone just trying to tidy up a particular area of the business, or actually this could be something quite deep and someone is taking issue or has concern or doesn't understand, or we haven't communicated, they're not connected to Jade Pride Week for whatever reason. And so we decided to lean into it, and we started a conversation with the whole organisation around, hey, this has happened, we could be overblowing it completely, or there could be something bigger going on here, and let's talk about it. And it opened up an amazing conversation in the organisation around, yes, there was some uncomfortableness. And how do we lean into that and start having one-on-one conversations with people and help navigate that? And I mean, without going into detail, I had amazing conversations with people who sat on very different sides of the table with me. But it was the leaning into it, not knowing how to navigate it. There were some times where I sat there going, I don't know where else to go with this, but respecting one another's point of view and choosing to have the conversation. So I think there are moments in your cultural journey where you could choose to either lean into it, or you could choose to just think it's just a small thing, like someone accidentally ripping a poster down.
Yeah, I love that. Those small things can turn out to be big moments in the end, can't they? Yeah, that's cool. Thank you. Elle, what are some of the kind of barriers to those inclusive cultures from your perspective?
I got 5 things. So get your pens out. Let's go. So number 1, it's going to start with us. It starts right here. It's not just about, you know, that I love that phrase, and it's been around for thousands of years now, know thyself, right? This is not just about knowing what we know, it's also acknowledging what we don't know. So if you don't understand mātauranga Māori, if you don't truly understand kaitiakitanga, if you don't truly understand manaaki and what that all means, because it's just words for some people now, if you don't know what you don't know, then go and find out, right? So come and have a kōrero, come over for lunch. We always got to boil up on some fried bread, you know, I mean, you know, all that kind of stuff. So number 1, it starts with us. What are our biases? These are all conversations that have been happening now for a while. Not often enough, but that's number 1, know yourself. Second thing, whānau engagement and whānau narrative. So how do we have these conversations and lean into these conversations with our own whānau? Do you get home and your tamariki or your rangatahi, your teenagers saying this thing about anti-vaccines or vaccines or mandates, and you're saying, nah, it's bollocks because, you know, driving the economy the other way, and that's what I say, and then you rock away? Is that how you're handling divisive narrative in your own home? Then how are you handling that narrative out there? And remember, divisive narrative will always plug in to the people who you're not speaking with. So divisive and diversity, it goes hand in hand. So how are you with that whānau engagement? And as a technology company, are you taking your technologies to the marae? You know, are our faces beside you when you're talking about your technologies and the opportunities in this space? Are you going into those spaces? And that's something that I used to do in geospatial technology. I'll be rocking in with my radar, my electromagnetic frickin' shenanigans, my eddy current units, you know, all those sorts of things, because I wanted our people to see that stuff. You know, it's our faces, our kanohi, that they relate to. So got to get that one. Right, whānau engagement and whānau narrative and getting in there. Number 3, it then moves on to our leaders, especially those in governance positions, which is why I hit governance up hard all day, every day. So currently I'm running multi-workshops today for boards and governors in emerging ecosystems, diversity in action, and omnicultural leadership. The uptake with some is great, and with others not so great. There's still justification as what is and why it is, as opposed to, you know, yeah, I know what I don't know. You know, there's still those justifications there. And that's great. There was a history, there's a reason, but let's put the justifications aside. Let's open it up and be open to the kōrero leaders. And I back up what Kate said. Number 4, And then as we move through, it is about what enduring partnership means. So we can learn about what happened with Te Tiriti o Waitangi, but what is the result of that when it comes to trust issues and enduring engagement with how we're viewing things, being on the other side of it for so long. So historically, engagements with Māori and iwi organisations are carried out or have been carried out in a reactive fashion. So these have been driven, this is driven by deadlines for need for mana whenua representation. And that's why we've got capacity issues, of course. So on occasion, this approach is unavoidable, but often it is a consequence of not having worked with iwi and hapu to develop a realistic engagement plan at the planning and the design phase of the mahi, all the way back then and all the way through. So number 5, we really need to evolve past these historical equity issues, but we can't if people do not recognise where they are at and where they're not at. We will see a real change with the teaching of true history, regionally, nationally, and globally. Today's tamariki will not have some of the bias that we all have, including myself. I've got lots, although they might be biased to our generations. So I think you guys are all hearing it. I hear the whatever boomer or okay millennial phrases used way too often now. Like, what? Seriously? So I think those are the things that I wanted to kōrero about anyway.
Love it. You're just like bullet point girl. But also, I've got a question about number 4, which is around that enduring partnerships and engaging with iwi and hapu.
Yeah.
Why do you think that doesn't happen as much as it should? Like, what's the...
Number 1.
What's the real barrier?
There's a misunderstanding of how to engage with a Western lens as opposed to a Te Ao Māori lens. There is so when we are talking about engagement, we think that engagement is a specific set thing, and it's not. So number 1 is the misunderstanding and how to engage, and this comes down to tikanga and protocol. And once again, this is about better understanding not only tangata whenua, which is people of the land across Aotearoa, and mana whenua, each has its differences. And my wholehearted recommendation is, if you want to know more, especially, so if you're from Otautahi, so all those in Otautahi, put your hands up and go, yeah, I'm from Otautahi because I'm amazing, right? Mana whenua run workshops. Book the workshop, cuz. Go in there and go and start that learning journey if you have not done that, okay? Or book some of our people who are doing cultural readiness engagement and bring them in. But it's not just about a fancy karakia and giving you all the fluffies with the waiata and the karakia and stuff. There's more than that. You've really got to get into it to really, truly decolonize your eyes and have a true understanding of how we work. And to be honest, I'm going through a decolonization process myself, which means I'm stripping away some of the crap, but then I'm also building myself up with some of the awesome stuff from the West, and then also my own identity as Māori, and then some stuff I'm learning from the Hawaiian leadership over there, then some stuff I'm learning from our brothers and sisters in Europe. Do you know what I mean? And this is true understanding of omnicultural enhancement and empowerment. I went way overboard with answering your questions. I'm going to tie-ho and shut up.
I love that. And then just that initial, the Te Ao Māori lens versus the Western lens, and just understanding that they are different and that we need to learn more about both. Love it. Man, I'm learning lots. And I also wrote down, just in case some of you missed it, book the workshop, cuz. That's my quote of the session so far. I'm sure there will be more. All right, Dorenda, in that dyslexia, neurodiversity space, what are those common barriers that you see to creating those inclusive workplaces in tech? Oh, you're muted. You weren't muted before.
Yeah, I wasn't, and then I am, and you know, like, come on, that's me. Okay, so because I've only recently started to understand myself at 73, I never recognized these things before. I always thought it was some dumb hack, you know, that couldn't read or write and they had a problem and I didn't have it, because I am a huge reader and I write reasonably well. So I didn't think I was one of them at all. So I found out recently that there are huge degrees of this, let's call it an advantage, because I now see this as an advantage, not a disadvantage. It's a superpower. So not to say that everybody else doesn't have superpowers of their own, but for me, the biggest barrier in looking back is the people's fear, because often dyslexic people are highly creative. They don't understand the barriers. So they go on with their ideas. They forget about the barriers. They don't exist because they don't recognize what went before. They don't read about it. They don't listen to people. They're just in their own world. So they recognize no barriers. So they're highly creative. And this creates fear in others. So lock up that creative person. You know, put them in a room on their own, open the door occasionally and let them out. We think we need them and then put them back in the room again. And so I think there's a lot of that. But on the other side, and it starts really early in school days. And I think there's a lot being said about this. Our education system, valuing reading and writing over everything else as the only pathway to self-fulfillment. But it extends beyond that. It extends to tertiary education, extends to the workplace. So our recruitment and HR processes are absolutely geared to readers and writers. So we have to look at that, and we have to also, other than the gatekeepers, we have to look at the culture. And I totally agree with what Kate has said about the culture. It's an ongoing process, and we need to, the whole organisation needs to understand the value of different ways of thinking. It's pointless just plonking a whole lot of different thinkers in an organisation and watching them go. You have to be prepared. So otherwise, this fear of creativity will emerge very, very quickly. So I think, yeah, any other questions? I don't know where I've been, so uncover any questions for me.
I like the, like, what's it going to take for the recruitment process? Like, what does it need for that to shift away from, like you talk about the importance that we place on reading, writing, you know, that skill set, which is what they're teaching in schools. So my son, who I'm trying to be a parent of, has some challenges in that space. And so he uses Google voice to text a lot. Like whenever there's a school assignment, he freaks out because he's got to write stuff, but he uses speech to text and it types it all out for him and he's kind of happy as. But I think about that recruitment phase of you have to write a cover letter and you have to write a CV, and I think about my own bias that and judgment, I guess, or yes, back in the day when I would receive cover letters and CVs from people, and if there was a spelling mistake or their grammar was shit, I was like, nah, like next. I'm like, they can't even write a letter, which is terrible to admit, but I'm not like that now. I've changed. But what do we need to do to move beyond that?
Well, I think it's a work in progress. I mean, I refer to my years as a judge of the High Tech Awards, and I was also judgmental. Some of the best ideas are some of the worst applications, if you like. You're reading through dozens of applications and you get impatient. I used to just take all the ones with spelling mistakes and put them to one side. Well, I had a lot to learn. But now I would suggest to them that they have someone to read their work, you know, and correct it. I got a thank you letter from someone for a wedding present a couple of weeks ago, and it was written by a scribe. Now, I know this particular family have a lot of dyslexic learners in it. It was written by a scribe, and she said, my scribe says, you know, and I went, oh gosh, that's a bit strange. And then I realized it's a workaround. There need to be workarounds here, and we need to not think of them as way out or extraordinary. Or what about interviewing people, and I know this is starting now, by video, for instance. We need to advertise job roles through different media now. We need to really apply some creativity to this. And I recently saw a video advertising positions, or advertising the benefits of working in the agriculture sector. I actually reposted it on LinkedIn because it was so good. But it was a video, I think it was made for television or something, showing what life would be really like, you know, and giving a contact number. We need to think like that, you know, picture the life, but also start to see that the skills that dyslexic people or neurodiverse people are absolutely extraordinary. And in the 21st century, we need those skills. We need a combination of linear, get things done skills and creative skills. And we need to learn to work together. We cannot solve the problems of tomorrow with yesterday's thinking. And I think the tech sector is really, really poised to lead in this. We've already made statements with the new marketing form that's been developed by government for tech companies, that we care as an industry. Well, if we care about the people we employ as well. We care about the world. We understand the larger context. We need people who can look at context in a larger scale for the things we do. So I just think, you know, we need to turn this over and say this is a superpower, one of many, and let's open our doors.
Love it. Is a superpower. There's a great, I've just caught an excellent question in the chat, thanks to Callum McCurdy. So there's actually one underneath it as well, which we'll come to. But Callum's question is around, what do you think are the things that the tech sector is great at that mean it's placed better than other sectors to harness and leverage diversity, both visible and invisible? I reckon quickly for you, and then we'll jump to Kate.
Right. Because we're global. Because the tech sector is global. It has access that other sectors don't necessarily have. It has audiences that other sectors would struggle to have on the scale that the tech sector has it.
Kate, what else would you jump in with there and say the things that the tech sector are great at, which means it should be able to attract that more diverse talent?
I think it's such a good question. I think there's two things that jump to top of mind, and I'm sure there'll be lots more as I think this through. But one is our focus on continuously improving and innovating. So why can't we continuously improve and innovate in this space to attract a more diverse and inclusive workforce? So that would be my first response, those skills and ability and that drive to make things better. I'm not saying that other industries don't have that, but I think it's our bread and butter. And my second one is there's so much noise and focus on our industry, which means we are attracting a whole new generation in, as other industries are, but it's a certain skill set that comes into tech, and I think we can leverage that. I think it's unique for us. I think we've really got an opportunity to leverage off what we know of in the past, but also what's coming into the workplace and those skills, those particular skills around innovation and continuous improvement.
Did Jade do anything differently in terms of that recruitment and talent attraction from diverse people, for diversity in your place? Like, what do you do that's different?
What do we do that's different? We do have, there's one thing that we've recently brought in, which is we don't just go for the those people that are actively looking in the job market, because people do remove themselves out of the job market because they feel like they don't have the particular skill set. They might have some learning challenges. They might be dyslexic. They might look at it and go, how do I create a CV to answer to this? So we're actually canvassing the job market and thinking, who can we reach out to and help with here that might be interested in coming into the organisation? So we're trying different avenues in that way so that we can actually start conversations with people. So it's not just the written word. We've had, I mean, it's been a period of 3 years where we have really started to change our gender split in the organisation as well. Now that's, I imagine, a lot to do with the work that we've been doing with our culture and our employment brand. We're really lucky, obviously, to have a female CEO, which is helpful when women now look at Jade and think that's a place that I'd like to be in. So I think it's about your employment brand. I think it's about challenging your ways of reaching out to people. It doesn't have to be the traditional, just wait for the application to come in. It's about building a pipeline, getting to know people who are out in the market that might not normally put their hands up. I think there's lots of little bits and pieces that you can change in your process. Again, it's using that innovation and continuous improvement that doesn't just go for our engineers, that goes into HR as well. Like, how can we change things to make it easier for people, which works in our benefit as well.
Yeah, I love that about having that pool. Like, how do you start to have those conversations instead of waiting for the vacancy and then advertising it? Like, how do you flip the script on that and find those people before the need's there?
Yes, yeah, and because you miss people otherwise.
Yeah.
Who won't apply for whatever reason.
Yeah. I'm wanting to be very respectful of people's time, and there is 9 minutes left. And Neil will growl at me if I go over, which I easily could. What are one or two things, or that kind of one from each of you, what's that one big action or one idea that if people could just leave here with one thing to either think about or act on as a result of what you've learned about diversity and inclusion in your own workplaces, what would it be? And we'll start with Dorenda because she's unmuted. So that feels...
Oh, there we are. You could hear me breathing. Well, I'm sorry, I don't follow rules very well. There's another signal. Okay, so I'm just going to put forward that I'm currently working with Neil on a project to get started on this. And if it's okay to talk about that, we're putting together a cluster of companies in Canterbury to trial, we're calling it the Canterbury Tech Skills Cluster Pilot, to try and actually work together and co-design with a group of companies a way to encourage more neurally diverse people in, with a specific focus on dyslexia, because as I said before, we just can't be everywhere at this stage. But I'm looking forward to it. We are having a lot of conversations around the country seeking support, both moral, not yet financial, but moral support, and getting great feedback to this. So we want to create this pilot, prove that it can be successful, because we've got 1 in 10 New Zealanders that we believe are neurodivergent, well, I believe are dyslexic, have dyslexic brains in New Zealand. I'm trying to figure out how to say that better. So if there's 1 in 10, how the heck are we missing them? And I also want to make this point that there are many neurodiverse people already working in tech. And so we need to make it comfortable for them to actually self-declare, to be recognised and valued, not just bring in new people, but recognise and value the skills that are often underutilised in companies. Thank you.
I love it. That's a great line that I'm just writing down, making it comfortable for people to self-declare. That's beautiful. Thank you, Dorenda. Elle, hit me with your list. She'll have like 3 ready to go. She'll be like, boom.
I did actually, and I heard the time corridor. So let's just break it down to 1 for the collective and 1 for yourselves each. So 1 for the collective for your workplace. Invite those with opposite opinions within your workplace to have an open campfire conversation. BOMA do this well in their programs. Invite them around and have this agendaed in your staff hui. So everybody's present, and make sure your board members, if you have a board, are present and there. So invite those conversations and invite them into your workplace. That's number 1. That's a collective action. For yourself, start with social media. Join a group who you wouldn't otherwise join. I joined, I'll give you my example, the Freedom Rights group. I joined them because I was like, I don't understand your kōrero, and I don't get that. So I thought I'm going to join them. And you know what? After spending a couple of months on their Facebook page, just in the background, listening, I was like, you know what? That point's valid, that point's valid, that point's valid. That shit's a little bit right-wing, but we'll, do you know what I mean? Or that's too far left. But what we need to do is take time to find the similarities and the things that we find common ground. You know, that's part of the kotahitanga process, is always looking for the things that we can start on a common ground foundation, and then rock on in from there. So, hey man, join a group that you wouldn't otherwise join, and just sit back and listen and try and find those things.
Love it. I think there's a piece in there, especially around that kotahitanga, around like empathy falls within that for me. So I do a lot of work with teams about empathy and what it is. And because it's often misunderstood, but I call it empathy because it's about them. And I think we need to get to a better place around that compassion and understanding, and just taking the time to learn about other people and where they're coming from, and that whole piece around, you know, I love that start with social media, jump on those groups that you don't understand, because being in there, you get to get a better understanding of where they are coming from. And often there is no right or wrong. It's just where different people are at. And we're very quick to slap our own opinion on that, especially lately with what's going on. So I love that, kotahitanga. And if you can't beat them, join them and get in that social media lens. Kate, lucky last.
Yeah, I've already got 2, and they're based around probably my 2 favorite quotes. So my first one follows on closely from what you've just been discussing, which is check your own biases first before we start the conversation, and understand them a little bit. We talk a lot about understanding our stories versus what facts are in front of us. And I think the more we can really understand that so much of our background and belief system has been based on our own upbringing and understanding ourselves better, the better we can turn up to have the conversation. So understanding yourself as much as you possibly can, so that you can bring that to the table in the conversation. The second one, I'm not going to be able to quote it off the top of my head, but it's essentially any behaviour that leadership is willing to walk past will define the culture. And so if you're sitting here in a leadership position, whether that's as a senior leader or a leader in the organisation, an influencer, ask yourself, what behaviour have you walked past and what have you been willing to accept? And what could you do differently next time to maybe lean into the conversation and start talking about it? Because the more we ignore the behind the scenes, the chat, the things that we think are just, little side conversations that don't have an impact, that stuff flows into culture. So lean into it, ask yourself what you've been walking past, know that what you do allow into your organisation is what will create your culture, and challenge it.
Yeah, I love that. That's like step 1, start with self-awareness and invest that effort in yourself. Am I open to listen? Am I understanding my own bias? What is my subconscious and conscious telling me? And second, that thing around making sure that words and actions are aligned.
Yes.
And I think there's a big piece in there that I often see around being aware of where diversity and inclusion is present in the decisions that you make and the decisions that you don't make. So who you hire and who you don't hire, who you mentor versus who doesn't get mentored, who gets the big projects, who doesn't get the big projects. Like, everyone is watching you as a leader in an organization. And so your words and actions and music have to match. So I think that's a very good point. Go check yourself first.
Yeah, I like it.
It's a good hashtag right there. I'm going to patent that. All right. Thank you very much, ladies. We're at time and Neil still needs to talk. Thank you, Dorenda, Elle, Kate, for sharing your experiences and journeys and thoughts with us today. It's been great. I've loved the conversation. Book the workshop, cuz still is the quote of the session. We'll see if that gets beaten at any other tech sessions in the future. And more to tell us more about that is Neil Hamilton. Welcome.
Thanks, Pip. Hi, everyone. Some of you will know me, some of you won't. I'm Neil from Canterbury Tech. I'm only going to talk for 30 seconds, mainly to say thank you so much to Pip, Elle, Kate, and Dorenda for joining us. I'll do the clapping, but everyone else is doing virtual clapping, I can assure you. Very appreciative of your time. It feels, in a way, unsurprisingly, that we've only just scratched the surface, and I'd love to find ways of Canterbury Tech continuing to advance this conversation in multiple ways and over what should be quite a long period of time. So leave that with me, and I'll see what we can do on that front.
There's a quick question. Can I jump in before you talk about March?
Yeah, sure.
How will the recording of this session be made available?
We have been recording it, if you didn't notice, and with some fairly amateurish editing from me, we'll put it up on YouTube in the next 24 hours and send you an email with a link to it. We'll also do a bit of a splash on social media to draw attention to it as well. So please use it as you see fit. I'm more than 30 seconds, but one of the observations I've always made about the tech sector is we're very good at bringing about change for other people, but we do it to them. And I think in some cases, aren't very good at doing it ourselves. And we need to get better at applying the skills that we bring to our clients and customers and look a little more internally to see what change might be beneficial internally. As Pip mentioned, this is the first of our Lunchtime Tech series. The next one will be on Tuesday, the 15th of March. We'll probably do them mostly on Tuesday lunchtimes. We'll send some more information out about it. But at the moment, we've got Doug Dixon, CEO of Catalyst Cloud, joining us for that session. And we've got a couple of others teed up for beyond that as well. So please join us for other sessions. Thanks to our audience. Yes, more clapping. Thanks very much to our audience for joining. I think we peaked at about 71, 72 people. So that's pretty good turnout. Thank you for showing up. And I'm done. That's a wrap.
Thank you, everyone. See you later.
Thanks all.
Ka kite koutou.